Can we know idealism to be true self-evidently, or is idealism just another incoherent view of the world? I hope to demonstrate in this video that there are good a priori reasons to accept idealism where consciousness is all that exists. Let's think about consciousness in the following way. Perhaps I know nothing. There's a chance that everything I believe is wrong. But if I know anything at all, I know I am experiencing something. That experience can include taste, colors, sounds, smells, visual perceptions, emotions, feelings, etc. These things are experiences, not as something true about the external world, but rather just experience in and of itself. Experiences are real in and of themselves. Again, I'm not claiming that there is some external reality or that there is something causing my experience, but rather the experiences I have in and of themselves are undeniable. We could be wrong about everything, but if we are wrong about experiences, then we can't make any knowledge claims about anything. So, we must start with experiences in and of itself as a fundamental, undeniable aspect of reality. Even if we may not have full knowledge of our experiences, like if we are dreaming but don't remember the dream, we still had the experiences of a dream, even if it's outside of memory. So experience in and of itself is undeniable. Experience, of course, is consciousness. Consciousness is simply experience or mental activity, which is sounds, taste, color, sensations, in and of themselves. An organism is conscious if there is something it is like to be that organism. You only consider yourself conscious right now because there is something it is like to be yourself. So, we can know that consciousness exists. In fact, consciousness is the only thing we can be most certain of. If we don't accept the existence of consciousness, then we shouldn't accept the existence of anything at all. We must now remember the dichotomy between what's called matter and mind. The mind is that which experiences something in and of itself, and matter as its opposite is that which does not experience in and of itself. Under physicalism, for example, there is nothing it is like to be a chair or a rock. Furthermore, under physicalism, reality is constituted by physical primitives, and there is nothing it is like to be these physical primitives. What this means is that since matter is not mental, then it does not have the same epistemic status as mind. All knowledge presupposes mind, or presupposes something that experiences in and of itself. So the claim that matter exists, or to claim that there is something outside of experiences, is to make an epistemic abstraction that can't be justified. As Keith Ward explains, it seems as though physical objects, when not being observed, have no colors and no sounds, smells, or taste either. Sounds, like colors, are not physical events. Neither are smells, taste, or sensations. Things do not smell like, taste like, or feel like anything when no one is smelling, tasting, or feeling them. The physical world, it seems, is totally vacuous. No colors, sounds, smells, tastes, or sensations. What on earth is left? This all implies that since knowledge is gained from our experiences, and since it's actually impossible to get outside our own experiences, then why say that there is anything beyond experience? To make my point clear, let's modify Johann Rat's foundationalist argument. Premise 1. Consciousness can only infer objects that are being experienced. This is true because that's what consciousness simply is, that which experiences. But notice that matter is not something that which experiences. Matter is the opposite, which is that which does not experience. This means that matter, as an ontological category, cannot be known through consciousness alone, but rather can only be what's called some sort of explanatory abstraction that is used to explain the world. Only then can matter be added onto the equation to explain the world. Premise 2. All knowledge about everything can only be known through consciousness. This is because knowledge presupposes something that which experiences or knows. In this case, it is consciousness that is known, and likewise, it is the only way we come to know about the world. Therefore, everything knowable is the same ontology as consciousness. Again, this argument doesn't claim that it's impossible for the ontological category of matter to exist. Rather, that if matter does exist, then there would be no way of us knowing about it. The simple idea is that we do not know matter in the same way that we know of mind. Now, one may argue and object that we need something beyond consciousness in order to explain the world around us, like why we share the same world, or why the laws of nature act in the way they do. But, as Bernardo Castro explains, idealism infers simply that consciousness itself extends beyond its face value personal boundaries. This way, while physicalism postulates a fundamental new ontological class next to experiences, Idealism simply extrapolates the boundaries of consciousness, which is the sole undeniable ontological class, beyond those that we can probe directly. To put it metaphorically, while idealism makes sense of reality by inferring that the Earth extends beyond the visible horizon, physicalism does so by inferring the existence of an isomorphic but ontologically distinct shadow Earth. Clearly, the former is a more parsimonious inference and as such is not equivalent to the latter. Given these facts, it's clear that from the start, idealism is the more parsimonious option over physicalism. Building off from this argument, we can use a similar argument from David Hume's bundle theory. When we take an object like a chair and remove all its properties like the concreteness of the chair or the color of the chair, and once you remove all those properties, then there's no chair left. Likewise, we can explain the world in terms of its shapes, colors, sensations, feelings, etc., without reference to anything beyond these mental categories or mental properties. We can apply this to all of our experiences, and it's clear that there are no good reasons to think that there is anything non-mental in our reality. Everything we experience and everything that we talk about constitutes consciousness. Finally, the final argument is the introspective argument. Premise 1, the mind exists. This, of course, is just saying that consciousness exists, but we already explained earlier why consciousness is undeniable. So there's really no disputing this premise. Premise 2, of course, is that the properties of the mind are not that which matter can have. This is seen in what's termed the hard problem of consciousness. Basically, since matter cannot have experience in and of itself, then to explain consciousness you would need reductionism. But the problem is that reductionism requires that at the fundamental, bottom level of our brains, there is no thing that it is like to be our brains. So then, if our brains do in fact produce this experience in this sort of reductionistic way that physicalism requires, then our experiences in and of itself reduce to something that is not an experience in and of itself. Or in other words, if experience is not fundamental to the brain, but rather the brain produces experience, then it necessarily leads to what's an experience being itself non-experiential, and thus you're left with a contradiction. This contradiction, of course, is why the mind cannot have the properties of matter. Anything that we talk about, anything that we experience, again, constitutes consciousness, and so to try to reduce experience in and of itself to something that's not experience in and of itself will create this contradiction. Finally, the third premise is that substance dualism is unnecessary. This doesn't mean that dualism is false, but rather it is less parsimonious than idealism, due to the fact that dualism posits a reality beyond consciousness, and we don't need that as an explanation of the experiences we are having. Therefore, the final conclusion is that all is mental. So, given these arguments, all these arguments show that one can conclude idealism to be the best metaphysical theory of reality simply by thinking about the idea of consciousness and how it works. But given all these a priori philosophical arguments, it's clear that idealism has the upper hand. And so it is on the burden for the physicalists and dualists to demonstrate that there are good reasons as to why there is a reality beyond consciousness. Because as far as we can tell, there is no reality beyond consciousness.